My name is Evelyn Brooks. I used to be the wife of an ambitious entrepreneur, the man I believed would help me build a forever home. But instead of love, I got failed investments, betrayal, and a scheme to steal the very house I poured my heart and soul into. I didn't just lose a husband, I almost lost myself. And then I fought back, and I won. Before I share the full story, my journey from broken to reborn, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. Hit the like button and subscribe if you've ever made it through something life-shattering. Trust me, you're going to want to hear what happens next. The notification lit up my phone screen just as I was setting down my presentation materials in the Seattle conference room. Grant's name, a name I'd trained myself to ignore, blazed across the display. My thumb hesitated over the message preview, but curiosity won. Sold the house. Good luck finding a new place. I read it 3 times before the words registered. My hands went cold despite the warm May afternoon streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Around me, my clients chatted about sustainable design trends, but their voices faded to white noise. The house. Our house. The 1920s craftsman in southeast Portland that I'd spent 2 years restoring, choosing every tile, every paint color, every restored original fixture with the kind of care you give to things you plan to keep forever. My fingers moved on autopilot, opening my banking app. The mortgage was still there, still in both our names. How could he have sold it? My next thought came with a twist of nausea. He couldn't have, not legally. Evelyn, everything all right? My client, Margaret, touched my shoulder gently. I forced my professional smile back into place. Family emergency. I'm so sorry, but I need to make a quick call. In the hallway, I dialed Danica, my best friend, and more importantly, my lawyer. She picked up on the second ring. He did what? Her voice could have cut glass. That's not possible. You own that house jointly, and Oregon law requires... I know. I leaned against the cool wall, watching Seattle's skyline blur through sudden tears I refused to let fall. But there's something I haven't told you. After his bankruptcy last year, after the 3rd failed startup, I had him sign a quit-claim deed. The house is actually in my name only now. The silence stretched between us before Danica's laugh, sharp and delighted, filled the line. Oh, this is going to be good. He just tried to sell a house he doesn't own? Apparently to his new girlfriend, someone named Sienna. The name tasted bitter. 23 years old, according to the Instagram profile I'd stupidly looked up last month. An aspiring lifestyle blogger who posted quotes about living your truth between sponsored smoothie posts. How soon can you get back to Portland? I glanced back at the conference room. I'll catch the next flight. The plane ride gave me too much time to think. 7 years of marriage unspooled in my mind like a film reel I couldn't pause. Grant, with his easy smile and grand plans, always one venture away from making it big. The way he'd swept into my life when I was 28, full of promises and certainty. I'd been successful, independent, building my interior design business from scratch. He'd made me feel like I was living too small. You could be so much more with the right partner, he'd said on our 3rd date, his hand covering mine across the restaurant table. Someone who believes in thinking bigger. I'd thought he meant my dreams. Only later did I realize he meant his. My phone buzzed with text as soon as I landed at PDX. 3 from Grant, escalating from casual to threatening. 1 from a number I didn't recognize. Sienna, introducing herself as the new owner and asking when I'd be out. The audacity of it made my hands shake. But it was the email from my neighbor, Mrs. Chen, that stopped me cold. She'd attached a photo. A moving truck in our driveway, boxes being loaded. Grant directing the operation like he owned the place. Which, I reminded myself with grim satisfaction, he absolutely did not. Danica met me at the house. Grant's car wasn't there, but the front door stood open. Inside, gaps yawned where furniture used to be. My grandmother's writing desk, gone. The vintage bar cart we'd found at an estate sale on our anniversary, gone. But the built-in craftsman details I'd painstakingly restored. The exposed beams I'd spent weekends stripping and refinishing. Those remained, silent witnesses to what we'd built and what he was trying to tear down. He took the surface things, I said, running my hand along the original wainscoting. But he can't take the bones. Danica pulled out her phone, all business. First, we file a police report for theft. Then, we contact this Sienna person with a cease and desist. The sale is fraudulent. He can't sell what he doesn't own. I nodded, but my chest felt hollow. This house was supposed to be our forever home. I'd picked this neighborhood because of the park nearby, perfect for the kids we'd planned to have. Kids that never came, lost to 3 miscarriages Grant had called setbacks, and probably for the best, given the market. The market. Everything in Grant's world came down to market conditions, venture capital, burn rates, and runway. Even our marriage had been a startup to him, and I'd been too in love to see I was just another asset on his balance sheet. Earth to Evelyn. Danica waved a hand in front of my face. You still with me? Sorry, just remembering. I forced myself to focus. What do we do first? Document everything. Take photos of what's missing, what's damaged. Then we make some calls. As I moved through the rooms with my phone, cataloging absence, memories ambushed me. Grant teaching me to make his mother's marinara in this kitchen, dancing to Motown while the sauce simmered. Grant carrying me over this threshold, both of us laughing at the cliché. Grant slamming this same door after another failed pitch meeting, his face dark with rage I'd learned to navigate around. The last year had been the worst. After his cryptocurrency day trading platform went under, taking several investors' money with it, he'd changed. The confident entrepreneur became a cornered animal, lashing out at the nearest target. Me, you used to believe in me, he'd accused one night after his third whiskey. Now you look at me like I'm pathetic. I'd wanted to say that belief was earned, not owed. That watching him lie to investors, blame partners, and gamble with our savings had eroded my faith. Instead, I'd made excuses and soothing noises, playing the supportive wife while quietly moving our assets into accounts he couldn't touch. The cease and desist letter went out that afternoon. By evening, my phone exploded with calls. Grant, furious. Sienna, confused. A real estate agent named Bradley, threatening legal action for interfering with a legitimate sale. Let them come, Danica said over wine in my half-empty kitchen. I've got the quitclaim deed, the mortgage documents, everything. He forged your signature on the sale documents. That's fraud. But it was Sienna's voicemail that made me pause. She sounded young, scared. I don't understand what's happening. Grant said the divorce was final, that the house was his. I put my entire inheritance into this. Please call me back. Against Danica's advice, I did. $20,000, Sienna whispered over the phone. From my grandmother. He said it would be our fresh start. I closed my eyes. How long have you been together? 6 months. He said you were difficult, that you'd try to cause problems. Of course he had. Grant's version of our story probably painted me as the bitter ex-wife, clinging to the past. He'd always been good at revision, at making himself the hero of every narrative. Sienna, I need you to understand something. Grant doesn't own this house. He never told you that, did he? The silence stretched so long I thought she'd hung up. Then, barely audible. No. We met the next morning at a coffee shop in the Pearl District. She was even younger in person, with the kind of dewy optimism I'd had at her age, pre-Grant. I have the papers, she said, sliding a folder across the table. Her hands shook. He made it seem so official. I studied the documents. Grant had done his homework. Fake deed, forged signatures, even a bogus title company letterhead. But amateur hour mistakes riddled the pages. Wrong dates, my middle name misspelled, a notary seal that wouldn't fool anyone who looked closely. I'm not the enemy here, I told her gently. He is. Her face crumpled. I left my job in California for him. Burned bridges with my family who said he was too old, too smooth. God, I'm such an idiot. No. The word came out harsher than I intended. You're not an idiot. You trusted someone who seemed trustworthy. That's human. I thought about my own family's warnings when I'd announced my engagement. My sister Ellen calling Grant slick. My mother wondering why a successful man in his 30s was pursuing someone he'd met at a professional mixer. Someone whose business was just taking off. Love makes you stupid, Mom had said, not unkindly. Just keep your eyes open. But I'd squeezed them shut, willfully blind to the red flags. The way Grant always insisted on handling our finances. How he'd joke to friends that I was adorable when I talked about business strategy. The slow erosion of my confidence as he chipped away at my decisions, my instincts, my successes. What happens now? Sienna asked. You get your money back. I keep my house. And we both get free of Grant Mitchell. She laughed, watery, but real. You know what the worst part is? I was going to start a home design blog. He said you'd help, that you were still friends. I actually looked up your work. It's incredible. The irony of it, Grant trying to sell my house to someone who admired my work, wasn't lost on me. Even in his cruelty, he was unoriginal. Grant showed up that evening with Sienna in tow, clearly expecting to bulldoze through my defenses. I watched from my window as they climbed the front steps, his hand possessive on her lower back. The same gesture he'd used with me once upon a time. I'd prepared for this. Danica waited in the living room with a folder of evidence. Mrs. Chen had agreed to be present as a witness. Even my contractor, Tom, who'd helped with the restoration, stood by with photos of the house's condition when we'd bought it versus after my renovations. Evelyn. Grant's voice held that particular mix of condescension and charm he'd perfected. Let's discuss this like adults. Absolutely. I gestured them inside. Please have a seat. His confidence faltered when he saw my assembled team. What is this? Documentation. Danica stepped forward. Mr. Mitchell, you've attempted to sell a property you don't own. That's fraud. We have the quitclaim deed you signed, transferring full ownership to Ms. Brooks. Grant's face cycled through emotions. Surprise, rage, calculation. That was signed under duress. She manipulated me when I was vulnerable. Vulnerable? I couldn't help the laugh that escaped. You mean bankrupt? After you lost 30,000 of our savings on cryptocurrency? Sienna's sharp intake of breath told me this was news to her. Grant shot her a warning look. Here's what's going to happen. Danica continued smoothly. You're going to return any money you've taken from Miss Martinez here. You're going to return any items you removed from this house. And you're going to sign this agreement acknowledging you have no claim to this property. Or what? But his bravado was cracking. Or we press charges, fraud, theft, forgery, your choice. The room went silent, except for the tick of the grandfather clock in the hallway, another thing he'd tried to take. I watched Grant process his options, saw the moment he realized he was cornered, but Sienna spoke first. I want my money back. She stood, moving away from Grant. All of it, today. Baby, let's talk about this privately. And no. Her voice grew stronger. You lied to me about the house, about your divorce, about... She turned to me. When did you two actually separate? Legally? 3 months ago, but we've been living apart for almost a year. Sienna's face went white. You told me 2 years. You said... She shook her head. It doesn't matter what you said. It was all lies. She walked out, dignity intact despite everything. I admired her for that. It had taken me years to find that kind of strength. Grant turned on me then, his mask finally slipping completely. You always were a vindictive bitch. Could never just support me, believe in me, and I believed in you for 7 years. My voice stayed steady, though my heart hammered. I believed through 3 failed businesses, through the gambling you called investing, through the affairs you called networking. I believed until believing was killing me. Affairs? He scoffed. You're paranoid. Tampa conference 2 years ago. Melissa from the venture firm. Phoenix last year. That startup consultant. Should I continue? His face went slack. He hadn't known I knew. But hotel receipts tell stories, and credit card statements don't lie. And when you start hiding things from your spouse, they start paying attention to details. The house was all I had left, he said finally, deflated. Everything else is gone. That's not my problem anymore. Tom stepped forward with his photos. Actually, Mr. Mitchell, about these items you removed today, After the others left, Grant and I stood alone in what used to be our living room. The setting sun painted everything golden, a cruel beauty that highlighted the empty spaces where our life together used to be. Remember when we bought this place? His voice had gone soft, manipulative. You were so excited about the original hardwood under that awful carpet. I did remember how we'd spent our first night here on an air mattress, drinking champagne and planning renovations. How young I'd been. How certain that love could overcome anything. Don't, I wrapped my arms around myself. Don't you dare use our memories as weapons. I'm not. He stepped closer, and I saw him shift into the Grant who'd won me over all those years ago. Earnest eyes, vulnerable smile. Evie, we could work this out. We were good together once. Were we? I moved to the window, needing distance. Or was I just good at making you feel important? That's not fair. Fair? The laugh that escaped me was sharp enough to cut. Was it fair when you told investors I was just your pretty assistant at the Branson conference? Was it fair when you withdrew our entire emergency fund for your crypto scheme without telling me? I was trying to build something for us. No, you were trying to build something for your ego. The words I'd swallowed for years spilled out. And I was just the support staff. Cook your meals, manage your moods, clean up your messes, and smile pretty for your network. His face darkened. You never understood the pressure I was under. The expectations. I understood perfectly. I just stopped accepting that your pressure gave you the right to diminish me. The silence stretched between us. Years of unspoken truths finally given voice. Outside, I could hear kids playing in the park, their laughter a reminder of the life I'd imagined here. You've changed, he said finally. Yes, I met his eyes. I have. When did you become so cold? The night you came home drunk after losing the Henderson investment and told me it was my fault for not being charming enough at dinner, that my mediocre energy was dragging you down. I watched him flinch. That's when I started documenting everything. That's when I opened my own accounts. That's when I stopped being your wife and started being my own protection. He sank onto the window seat, the one I'd designed, built by Tom, cushion sewn by my own hands. I don't remember saying that. I do, word for word. Would you like to hear the recording? His head snapped up. You recorded me? Oregon is a one-party consent state. My lawyer suggested it after the third time you screamed at me for questioning your judgment. The fight drained out of him then. Without his anger, he looked smaller, older. The golden boy entrepreneur replaced by a middle-aged man with thinning hair and desperate eyes. I'm filing charges on the forgery, I said quietly. But I'm willing to not pursue the theft charges if you return everything by tomorrow and sign the agreement. Generous of you. But there was no heat in it. No, practical. I want you gone more than I want you punished. He stood slowly. For what it's worth, I did love you. In the beginning. You loved the idea of me. The successful woman who made you look good. The wife who never challenged you. But that wasn't really me, Grant. That was just who I thought I had to be. He walked to the door, pausing at the threshold. The writing desk, your grandmother's. I'll bring it back tonight. I nodded, not trusting my voice. That desk was where I'd written my business plan, where I'd sketched my first designs, where my grandmother had written letters to my grandfather during the war. It meant everything, and he knew it. He'd taken it precisely because he knew. Tom and his crew helped me move furniture back the next day. Sienna sent a text saying she'd gotten her money and was heading back to California. I wished her well and meant it. We were both survivors of Grant Mitchell's particular brand of charm. With each piece restored to its place, I felt something shift in my chest. But it wasn't about the furniture. It was about reclaiming space, physical and emotional. I spent the evening rearranging everything, not putting it back how it was, but creating something new. My home, my choices, my aesthetic without compromise. The writing desk went in front of the window overlooking the garden. I'd always wanted it there, but Grant had insisted it blocked the flow. Now, sitting at it with evening light filtering through the leaves, I understood he'd been wrong about that too. Danica found me there the next morning, coffee in hand. Thought you might need this. Desperately. I accepted the cup gratefully. Did he sign? Everything. The forgery charges scared him, that and the recording you mentioned. I pulled out my phone, showed her the voice memo app. Empty. You didn't actually record him? Never. But he believed I did because he knew how badly he'd behaved. His own guilt convicted him. Danica's laugh filled the room. Remind me never to play poker with you. But the victory felt hollow. 7 years of my life, measured in legal documents and returned furniture. I'd won, but what exactly? Hey, Danica touched my shoulder. You okay? I keep waiting to feel something. Triumphant? Vindicated? Instead, I just feel empty. That's normal. You've been in survival mode so long, you don't know how to just exist yet. She pulled out her phone. which is why I'm texting you the info for my support group. Thursday nights, amazing women, terrible coffee, but excellent conversation. I looked at the contact. Women's empowerment after divorce workshop seemed both exactly what I needed and terrifying. I don't know if I'm ready to talk about it with strangers. You don't have to talk. Just listen. Trust me, hearing other stories helps you understand your own. That Thursday, I sat in a community center classroom circle, holding a styrofoam cup of truly awful coffee, listening to a woman named Patricia describe hiding money in tampon boxes because her ex never looked there. Another woman, Keiko, talked about the day she realized her husband had been sabotaging her job interviews, calling her potential employers with concerns about her stability. When the facilitator, a warm woman named Diana with silver-streaked locks, turned to me, I shook my head. Just listening tonight. That's perfectly fine. We're glad you're here. After the meeting, a woman approached me. Leah, mid-30s, with kind eyes and paint-stained fingers. First time is the hardest, she said. I threw up in the parking lot before mine. That's reassuring. But I smiled. Gets easier, and Diana's right. We are glad you're here. Grab dinner. There's a great Thai place around the corner. Over pad Thai and spring rolls, Leah told me her story. Married 12 years, 2 kids, a husband who'd slowly isolated her from friends and family until she believed she couldn't survive without him. The day I left, he said I'd be back within a month. That was 3 years ago. She grinned. Still waiting for me to fail. Might be waiting a while. How do you start over? I don't even know who I am without being Grant's wife. That's the fun part. You get to find out. What did you love before him? Before Grant. It felt like reaching back through fog. Design, art. I used to spend weekends at estate sales finding pieces to restore. I had this vision of creating beautiful spaces that told stories. And now I have a successful business doing exactly that. Somewhere along the way, I started seeing it through his eyes. Not important enough, not scalable enough, not tech-forward enough. Enough according to who? The question hung between us, simple and devastating. Summer arrived in Portland with its usual fanfare of roses and food carts. I threw myself into work, redesigning spaces for clients who appreciated my vision without needing to improve it. The support group became a Thursday night anchor. These women who understood without explanation why I still flinched when my phone rang with unknown numbers. Grant made one last attempt in July. Not in person, he'd learned that lesson, but through lawyers. A formal demand for spousal support, claiming I'd hidden assets and left him destitute. The audacity! Danica fumed, pacing my kitchen. He tries to steal your house and now wants alimony? But I felt strangely calm. Let him try. The mediation took place in a downtown high-rise with views of Mount Hood. Grant showed up in a new suit, hair freshly cut, projecting success he didn't have. His lawyer, a shark in pinstripes, laid out their case. How I'd manipulated a desperate man, taken advantage of his temporary setback, left him with nothing while keeping everything. Our mediator, a former judge named Harold Washington, listened patiently. Then he turned to me. Ms. Brooks, your response? I slid a folder across the table. Bank statements showing Mr. Mitchell's withdrawals from our joint accounts, receipts for gambling debts paid with my business funds, investment documents he forged my signature on, credit card statements showing purchases for other women while we were married. Grant's lawyer flipped through the pages, his expression shifting from confident to concerned. There's more, Danica added. Mr. Mitchell's bankruptcy filing conveniently omitted several assets. We're prepared to notify the trustee if this continues. The room went silent. Grant stared at me like he'd never seen me before. You kept all of this? You taught me the importance of documentation. All those startup pitches you practiced on me, I learned about paper trails and due diligence. I met his gaze steadily. I'm a very good student. Harold cleared his throat. Mr. Mitchell, I'd advise you to withdraw your claim. The meeting ended with Grant signing away any future claims in exchange for my silence about the bankruptcy fraud. As we gathered our things, he lingered. Evelyn, a word? Danica tensed, but I nodded. It's okay, 2 minutes. Alone in the conference room, Grant looked out at the mountain. You know what the worst part is? You're thriving without me. I guess I thought you needed me. I thought so too. You made sure of that. Did I, or did you just let me believe it? The question surprised me. Both, probably. I wanted to be needed. You wanted to be necessary. We played our parts until the roles were all we had left. He turned from the window. I'm moving to Austin, fresh start. Tech scene there is booming. Same song, new city. I felt a wave of pity for whoever would meet him there. Some bright young thing impressed by his confidence and connections. I hope you find what you're looking for, I said, meaning it. Yeah. He headed for the door, pausing one last time. That contractor. Tom, you too? Goodbye, Grant. He left then. Finally and completely. I stood in that conference room, watching the mountain change colors in the afternoon light, and felt something I hadn't expected. Not anger or sadness or even relief, just finished. Like closing a book I'd been reading far too long. October came with its crystal mornings and golden afternoons. I stood on my back deck, coffee steaming in the crisp air, surveying the garden I'd planted over the summer. Dahlias bloomed in defiant bursts of color, their faces turned toward the weak autumn sun. You're up early. Leah appeared at the garden gate, her two kids racing past her into the yard. Best light of the day. I smiled as her daughter, Mia, immediately gravitated toward my outdoor art installation. Recovered materials from estate sales transformed into something new. Leah and I had become close over the months, our Thursday group friendship expanding into weekend markets and family dinners. Her kids had adopted me as Aunt Evelyn, filling my too-quiet house with laughter and chaos. Mom, look! Mia's brother James had discovered the fairy garden I'd hidden among the hostas. It's magical! Everything Aunt Evie makes is magical, Leah said, settling beside me with her own coffee. Speaking of which, how's the blog coming? I pulled up my laptop, showing her the latest post. After months of encouragement from the support group, I'd started writing about redesigning life after divorce. Not just interior spaces, but interior lives. The response had been overwhelming. 3,000 shares on the latest one, I said, still disbelieving. And this. I showed her an email. Portland Monthly wants to do a feature. That's incredible. What angle? Women rebuilding after toxic relationships. They want to photograph the house, talk about how physical spaces reflect emotional recovery. Leah squeezed my hand. You're going to help so many people. I got this yesterday. I pulled out a handwritten letter. From someone in Michigan who said my post about reclaiming spaces gave her the courage to leave. We sat in comfortable silence, watching the kids chase butterflies that should have been gone by now, but lingered in the unseasonable warmth. My phone buzzed. Diana from the support group confirming I'd speak at next week's meeting. Nervous? Leah asked. Terrified, but Diana says that's normal. Everything about this is normal. The fear, the doubt, the random Tuesday afternoons when you ugly cry in your car. But also this, the rebuilding, the community, the discovering you're actually pretty amazing on your own. Tom's truck pulled up then. We'd been friends for months now, nothing more. Though the group kept insisting there were vibes. He waved from the driveway, tools in hand for the studio space I was adding to the garage. Just friends, I said automatically. Sure, Leah's grin was knowing. And I'm just here for the coffee. As the day unfolded around me, kids playing, friends laughing, my home evolving into something entirely mine, I thought about Grant's question. Had I let him believe I needed him? Maybe. But somewhere between then and now, I'd learned the difference between needing someone and choosing them. Between supporting and enabling, between compromise and erasure. My grandmother's desk caught the morning light through the window, papers scattered across its surface, design plans, blog posts, letters from women finding their way back to themselves. I'd thought freedom would come from leaving Grant, but it hadn't. Freedom came from choosing myself, one decision at a time. From saying no without apology and yes without permission. From building a life that didn't need anyone's validation but my own. Aunt Evie, Mia tugged at my sleeve. Can you teach me to make something beautiful from something broken? I looked at this bright, fierce little girl and thought about all the broken things that could become beautiful. All the women sitting in circles, holding terrible coffee and each other's truths. All the empty spaces waiting to be filled with something better. Of course, sweet girl, that's exactly what we do here. As I led her to my workshop, I caught my reflection in the window. Same face, same body, but somehow entirely different. The woman looking back at me stood taller, smiled easier, took up space without apology. She was beautiful, not despite being broken and rebuilt, but because of it. Grant was wrong about one thing. I hadn't changed. I'd just finally become myself. And that, I thought as Mia's hand slipped trustingly into mine, was worth everything I'd lost to find.